Hello, this is Joe Dorr. I did a workshop tour like a couple of months ago, and since then um, I've purchased a new machine. So this is kind of an addendum to my shop door, and I also realized that I skipped a couple pieces of equipment that I'll add to the end of this thing. But here's the new piece of equipment. This is uh, a both a combination belt sander and disc sander I got from Grizzly. I had um, kind of a similar thing from a small little machine from Wen, which was a 3x21 belt, I think, and like a 6-inch disc sander. But it really wasn't a great machine. I used it, but it was you couldn't really zero in the tables. You'd put any pressure on them, they would shift on you. So it really wasn't a good machine. So I ended up investing in this from Grizzly. It's a model. The model number on this thing is G 1276. It's really an industrial grade machine. The interesting thing about this particular machine is they actually make two versions of it. There's this one, which is the slow speed one, which um, the, the speed on the belt is 2,500 feet per minute, and the speed on the disc is 1725, I think, revolutions per minute. Um, they have almost the exact same model at twice the speed, which is be 5,000 feet per minute on the belt, and 3,500 for the disc. Um, I don't know why. I don't know what kind of application you would need a really high speed sander for. I mean, this is more than enough for certainly for doing woodwork, and I would think that if you're doing metal work, you'd want it even slower potentially. So I'm not sure why they sell the higher speed version, but I got the lower speed version. The thing is really put together. It's really solid. It's on a workbench, by the way. That it was an old workbench that was here when I moved into the house, and it was really rickety at the time. So what I ended up doing was, you see over here, um, I basically put these large L brackets in that corner, and also in the other corner, to stabilize the table, because what it used to be is you'd move it, you could actually the table would move on you. So this thing makes it rock solid. Um, so a couple things to note about this. I have a 15-inch disc sander on the other side. So these sanders come with 80 grit paper here and an 80 grit belt here. Now the belt that comes with this you almost have to throw out, because the roller on top is slightly crowned. So when you get it from the factory, the 80 grit belt that's on there has been sitting in the warehouse for several months probably. So there's like a permanent lump, where the middle of that roller is. So you really can't use the belt. I ended up cutting it up and using it for regular sandpaper. Um, the other interesting thing is, or not so interesting thing is, the belt they give you. So I ordered a couple of replacement belts, different grits from Grizzly, but I find I didn't like them because I'll show you. I'll turn this thing on, and you'll see the seam. The way they do the seams, it's slightly thicker than the rest of the belt. So I'll turn this on. So you hear that dot 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 every second. You get a thicker piece of the belt. Let me take this guy out. and show you. So this is the one from Grizzly, and it's got arrows on the inside which show which direction it's going to go. And here's the seam. But what they do is they overlap the two pieces, as they come around to make the loop. They overlap the seam, and they put it at an angle, which is good. But still, you get that it's a thicker thing there. So what I did is I found this place called Maverick Abrasives, and what they do is you notice that inside there's no arrows. It doesn't really matter which way you put this on, and the way they join it, it's still at an angle like the other one, but it's not overlapped. They have this very thin kind of a connector here that where you don't get that effect. So this is a much better it's a much better belt. So anyway, I got a set of belts from that. So what else about this thing? Okay, this thing is listed as having, let me go down a little bit here, as having a 2.5 inch dust port and a 3-inch dust port. Now 3 inches is kind of a weird size. Most things are either 4-inch or 2.5. So 3 inches is kind of weird. And also the 2-inch, if you look at it here, this hose setup here is what screws into the housing, and it does have a 2.5 inch plastic, connector there, but it then goes down into a 1.5 inch hose or a 1 3/4 inch hose. I'm not sure. So, it's really not a 2.5 inch thing for this guy, but it works. It's fine. And I ended up having to buy some 3-inch tubing and then a 3-inch to 2.5 inch reducer. So this is a 2.5 inch line. Eventually goes to a 3-inch line. But the dust collection is pretty good on this, actually. So there's no complaints there. The other thing I'll mention about it is that normally with these machines, when you buy them, the miter gauge they include is pretty crummy. I normally throw it out and I'll get a decent miter gauge, but this one is actually not too bad. It's plastic. This part of it is plastic, but there's no slop in the in it at all on either one of these guys. So that they did a nice job matching up the the miter gauge to the slot. Sometimes you get these things and they're useless because there's too much slop in the blade, in the track there. So it's a great machine. Now, so what I decided to do is to leave the 80 grit on here and just use this one for changing back and forth. These disc sanders, if you've never used one before, they use these PSA pressure sensitive adhesive things on here. So you can't really, changing it is a pain in the neck, first of all, and it's not like you could go from 80 then put on a 120 and then go back to this particular 80, because once you take this thing off, it's destroyed. So on my 15-inch disc sander in the other shop, it originally had an 80. That was too aggressive for what I needed it for. So I went to a 120, and even that was more aggressive than I wanted to be, because I use it for touch-up work, really. I'm not looking to take off huge amounts of material. So I ended up switching that one to 150. I'm going to leave this at 80 in case I really actually do need to take off some stuff. And then, but it's a nice machine. It's really heavy duty. I mean, this thing is an industrial grade machine. So I ended up seeing a YouTube video of a guy that thought of a really interesting way of storing the belts, because if you have a lot of different different belts, they're hard to store. And he came up with an idea, and he had a CNC router just like I do, and what he ended up doing was cutting. He used 1.5 inch Schedule 40 PVC, and he cut. It originally looked like this. It wasn't cut out in the middle, but he cut out the thing so that the PVC pipe would exactly fit in here. And this was just a test piece, and you can see what ends up happening is this thing is so tight. The CNC router is so precise, and I made this. I took a caliper, measured the inside and the outside, made it exactly that, and it's so tight that you don't need glue. I just banged it in with a rubber mallet, and I created this guy over here. This over here for all the different grits. Now I'm not going to probably end up using all of these grits, but I like to have them on hand. But it organizes them really nicely. Now he had only used it for these 6x48-inch belts, so these are 6 inches deep. But I realized that all that space in here is unused. So I did another row of using 1-inch Schedule 40 PVC, and what I used that for are these 3x24-inch belts, which I created this. I had seen this also a video of this. I created this from a set of plans that I found. I saw a video of a guy who made this, came up with this concept. So what this is, it's a jig for mounting on the lathe, and I can put a 3x24-inch belt on here, and this thing's, you can't really see it here, but this is like a wedge-shaped plug, so that if I want to remove this, I loosen it up. I can compress these 4 end pieces in. I could take this guy off and put a different one on. And the nice thing about this is it allows me to do inside curves, large inside curves. I have a spindle sander in the other part of the shop, but the biggest that gets around is about this big. So that's for a tight inside curve. This would be more for a more shallow inside curve. So it's a handy thing to have if you have that kind of a need. So I have all these guys set up. So this is what I ended up doing. I made this whole thing on the CNC router, and the interesting thing is, if you can see all of these, the grit sizes. I actually did this on the CNC using a bit that I have that holds a short Sharpie, a little marker, and you set the spindle speed to 0, and it'll actually draw whatever you want. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so that's that tool. Here is one of the tools that I didn't mention didn't show you in the last thing, and this is a jet variable speed buffing machine. So this is really nice. I use this for finishing the wood. I buff out the wood as opposed to putting a finish on it. I use the Beal buffing system. I'm not going to explain that in this video. If you want to see a full explanation of how the Beal buffing system works, if you can look at the third part 3 video I made that had to do with open segment bowl creation. The end of that, I get into an explanation of how you do the Beal buffing system, but so I'm not going to repeat that now. And the other piece of equipment I forgot, if you can see it back there, I have a Pegasus scroll saw, which I don't use very often, but it actually does come in handy. It's pretty good. It's got a 21-inch throat, and I like it. There's a couple of other scroll saws, like DeWalt, I think makes one. Uh, but the one thing I didn't like about the DeWalt is the DeWalt, the saw part of it stays stationary like it would be with a bandsaw. And if you wanted it to get an angle on it, the table tilts. This thing, the table stays stationary, and you tilt. This whole mechanism can tilt if you needed an angle cut. Um, I think that's preferable to to having the table rotate, because if you went up 45 degrees, trying to hold whatever piece of work straight so it doesn't slide off, I think would make the cut that much more complicated. Um, so I think that's all I wanted to update you on with this one. Um, but just to reiterate, this Grizzly, which is the main one that I added, is really a nice piece of equipment. But I was kind of surprised that at Grizzly with the quality of their what I consider inferior quality of their belts. So I wouldn't buy the belts from Grizzly again. I would buy them from this other company, Maverick Abrasives, because it does make a difference. I mean, if you're doing detail work and you're in there, having having the seam be raised, is not helpful. So anyway, that's it. I will if I add more stuff to the shop, I'll keep you guys posted.